Good afternoon, Professor Dede here. Today I am going to talk about material that's in Chapter A of the text. First, I'm going to start with interest groups. By definition, interest group is an organized group of people gathered together because of common attitudes trying to influence the government. According to pluralists, the crux of politics is group activity. Interest groups flourish in a pluralistic society. The influence of individuals can greatly be magnified by working with others. Under pluralism, several interests seek to influence the government. On your own, you can accomplish very little. But as the old expression is, strength in numbers. Interest group activity is strong in the United States, but it exists all over the world. Think about groups like Amnesty International and Greenpeace. Interest groups may appear similar to political parties because both seek to influence public policy. But interest groups, unlike political parties, do not aspire to gain control of the government. Interest groups are generally comprised of narrower membership than political parties. Groups include those promoting their programs and issues to government. Interest groups seek to influence policy and seek favors from even political parties. Once established, policy programs can be difficult to end because of interest group pressure. Some interest groups favor one political party over the other, such as the NRA is a strong supporter of Republicans. When we think about interest groups, the playing field for interest groups isn't level. Not all interest groups are equal. The ones that are better financed will do much better overall. The role of interest groups started to increase in the 1960s in America. Due to a variety of laws passed and a variety of things that happened, groups got more involved with lobbying and raising money. Here's another thing about interest groups. Poorly run or poorly financed interest groups run the risk of being ignored. Not all interest groups are equal. Like animal farms, some are more equal than others. Why do people join interest groups? Material benefits. Getting a good or a discount card. I belong to the AARP and I often get a 10% discount for a variety of things. A lot of people join because there's a feeling that you're benefiting mankind joining that group. The AARP has 40 million members. That's a strong interest group. Many interest groups started out emerging because of government activities. Pro-choice interest groups got very engaged after the Dobbs decision in 2022. Every government program has a constituency. When government tries to change or end a program, the groups will respond. The Reagan Department of Energy and Education, he tried to cut those things. Interest groups affiliated with those things responded. For a group to be successful, an interest group needs access to government leaders. Access equals power because you need phone calls returned. You need doors open. Interest groups spend money on government leaders, on campaign contributions, a variety of things, and they want something in return. Bureaucrats act as an interest group to protect their own turf, if you want to think about it this way. On an issue a legislator doesn't have to care about too much, he or she more likely will listen to an interest group and respond to their needs. Legislators deal with thousands of pieces of legislation a year and cannot be an expert on everything. Money is probably the most important factor in the success of an interest group, especially in elections. Candidates that raise the most money generally win an election. Money is the mother's milk of politics. To avoid influence of money in politics, Germany and Sweden have public finance campaigns where the government and the taxpayers basically pay for everything. Many have suggested using public financing for political campaigns to weaken the influence of interest groups. The problem with limiting money is, based on various court decisions, money is speech. Soft money is campaign contributions given to political parties and groups, used for issue ads against the other side. Since the 1970s, there's been a rise in single-issue interest groups, groups like the NRA, pro-life and pro-choice organizations, groups like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Multiple-issue interest groups care about a wide range of issues, such as religious issues, consumer issues, things like that. Single issue groups focus on one narrow thing. Labor issue groups lost a lot of power in the 1980s due to the PATCO strike in 1981. The more power you have as an interest group, the better off you are. Interest groups provide a representation that supplements Congress with all their membership, and they get a lot of people involved. But the one thing that interest groups hate, while they will be busy recruiting people, they hate free riders. Free riders are people who don't belong to the group, but get the benefits of the group's hard work. You don't have to belong to the AARP or the NRA to get the benefits of what that group is fighting for. When it comes to interest group strategies, there's a variety of approaches to working with legislative leaders. There's lobbying, basically hiring people to lobby or do it yourself, persuade government leaders to act a certain way on your behalf. Former members of the government make great lobbyists. The other approach is to approach administrative figures in power. Depending on the issue, the executive branch may be a better approach to lobbying. When it comes to lobbying, you can directly lobby, write letters. Money is a great form of lobbying. Media events and ads on TV, grassroots lobbying. Most regulation and controls people talk about deal with the issue of interest groups in the area of lobbying. Former Speaker of the California Legislature, Jesse Unruh, once offered this advice to incoming legislators about lobbyists. If you can't eat their food, drink their booze, and sleep with their women, you have no business being here. And what he was trying to say was, you're going to be approached by lobbyists all the time. So you better know how to say no. The movie Thank You for Smoking, which was done in about 2006, is a rather accurate portrayal of a lot of things dealing with lobbying. Another approach to lobbying is litigation, going to court to try to have something stopped. As I mentioned, grassroots lobbying is very effective too. Another form of lobbying is demonstrations and protests. The media love to film a good protest. A bunch of people walking the streets complaining about people shooting each other is a great effort of lobbying. The Solidarity group in Poland in the 1970s and 80s was a very effective interest group. The apartheid movement, another effective interest group during those times. When it comes to elections, interest groups do a variety of things. They will arrange for the candidate to meet the members of the group, get to know them on the issues. That helps people vote for them. They will let members know an election is occurring. They'll provide campaign stuff like money and volunteers, money and literature, money and information. Of course, then they provide money. Money is a key factor in whether people win or lose. Endorsements are important. People will often vote for a candidate based on an endorsement of an interest group. Interest groups have a variety of roles and goals. They'll educate the public with information and propaganda. They'll provide money to campaigns. They'll lobby. They'll apply grassroots pressure on people. They want to make sure that the policies government is doing represents the group. They'll build support for issues. They want to make sure that these things are being done to help the group. Another aspect that I'm going to talk about in Chapter 8 is political parties. A political party is an organization of voters with common principles seeking to control the government. A goal of a political party is to control the government and gain power, because when you gain power, you get to put your agenda into place. Political parties serve as between citizens and government and provide a method for which demands and interests of citizens are heard in the political system. To get elected, belong to a party, represent the party. That will help you the most. In democracies, there are many areas of political party organization, centralization, where basically the party controls everything. In America, parties have lost their way and have lost their influence in the political system. Parties with high levels of centralization have a greater amount of coherence and ideological consistency. You want to control your party members and keep them in line. You don't want them going off in the crazy places. This is the problem Republicans have had in America in the Trump era. In the United States, one party can control one branch of government and tie things up, and that has happened constantly with gridlock. This is why United States parties have trouble agreeing on a national platform and are much weaker than the European system, where a party campaigns on a platform and then implements the platform when they win, because the party controls all the government. When it comes to advancing in a political party, don't make enemies. Party leaders use a system of rewards and punishment for people. Liz Cheney made some enemies and basically got booted from the Republican Party. Sam Rayburn, former Speaker of the House, once said, "To get ahead, get along." In democracies, political parties are a mechanism for which government is organized. The majority party is responsible for enacting legislation. Parties are weaker in a presidential system compared to a parliamentary system. Parties are dependent on wealthy donors in America and interest groups that finance their causes. Parties at times provide jobs to people in government. When it comes to parties, one thing I want you to remember is democracies cannot exist without political parties. When it comes to classifying parties, we often think of left and right as far as parties, the ideological spectrum, where parties to the left are much more liberal, parties to the right much more conservative. And then there's parties that try to get in the center, to try to get as much done as possible. Some parties are center-seeking. They want to get to the middle because they think that's the best way to get things done. There's a variety of types of party systems. One-party systems, where there's one political party, such as in Nazi Germany or in communist countries, like the Soviet Union and China, or in Cuba. Single-party systems lack competition and accountability and don't do well for democracy. Dominant party systems, where one party wins elections election after election and the other party basically has no shot. This happens in a lot of state governments. The Democratic Party in South Dakota is MIA. Two-party systems have some electoral choices and more stable governments, kind of like the United States. Multi-party systems are common in Europe with proportional representation, where more than two parties compete to control the government. This is also common in Canada and in Israel. Party systems are very important. It's important to get people involved in the party, to work for the party as far as for getting things done and to have success. The most important factor in determining party system is the electoral system. Electoral systems that use single-member districts tend to produce relatively stable party systems, generally two-party systems. Proportional representation, you can have multi-political parties, which is good for smaller parties, but sometimes can make democracy a little bit messy. Scholars are divided about the future of political parties. Declining membership, people not getting involved enough in parties. Many people believing all the parties are alike, which is completely untrue. Sometimes the personality of a candidate outnumbers the party. There are a lot of people that are Trump Republicans first and Republicans second. Just like there were people who were Obama supporters first who happen to be Democrats. Sometimes the galvanization of a personality can dominate and overrun a political party. And that stuff can be very, very common. Last thing I'll talk about is elections. Elections have consequences. If you don't vote, don't bitch about the government you're getting. Elections decide what type of government you're going to get and how the system is going to be. Voter turnout is critical in elections. Over time, we've seen in America where voter turnout, when it's 50%, that's considered extremely successful. Lower voter turnout at times shows apathy. People don't get out enough to find out about the issues. People not voting because they don't want to make a mistake. When it comes to the people that vote, people who are highly educated with good incomes, generally white Americans, more than minority groups vote. The Voting Rights Act did improve this. People under 30 do an awful job of voting. People over 65 are more consistent. Generally, men vote at higher rates than women do. Also, your place of residency. If you live in a compacted area where there are a lot of people live there, urban areas, polling and voting is usually higher because everyone's condensed and lives together. More people in the north than in the south vote. The average U.S. voter is generally white, college educated, a resident of a city, politically concerned, older, has a professional job, middle-aged. Non-voters are generally single and younger, poorly educated, lower class, politically apathetic. Voting is an important element in American politics. The key thing is getting people fired up and excited to vote, to catch the wave, to say, hey, I voted for candidate X, I'm going to stay a member of this party and get involved forever and ever. The problem is sometimes people get discouraged. They don't get their hope and change fast enough. Other groups are coming out more to vote, such as people in the gay community, to show their concerns about issues. The more people vote, the better democracy is. People who voted for President Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s and 40s, the ones that are still alive, still consider themselves Democrats because of the things Reagan did, the things that Roosevelt did. Just as a lot of people who were in their 20s and 30s during the Reagan era are still Republicans today because they look at that time as a good opportunity where things were good in this country. Party identification, political leanings, reflects the attachment people have to a political party. Generally, once people identify with a party, they will generally stay with the party. If they leave a party at times, sometimes it's because of the personality of the person that causes them to leave. Another factor when it comes to elections is electoral realignment. When things shift, the Democratic Party at one time was solid for the South, but the civil rights issue caused people in the South to move to Republicans. Environmental groups used to support Republicans. Now they support Democrats. De-alignment was people basically say, I don't want part of any party. Pox on both your houses. A lot of de-alignment happened in the 70s due to Watergate and Vietnam. Getting people involved and committed to a party can be very difficult. What wins elections? The media, good candidates, being on television, being online, things like that help you win elections. Good candidates, good issues, getting people fired up. Candidates who are optimistic about America, its prospects tend to win. You have to never ignore your base, but race to the middle. Coalitions and blocs often change over times too. Candidates try to align themselves with clusters of values and try to reach out to voters. The candidate, the party, issues, money, and campaign team, and a lot of luck win elections. Voters love charisma. Image matters, as Andre Agassi once said. Think about it this way. Image is everything. Style over substance. Image over issues. Take care. Have a great day.